Like,
That's all Barry Cassidy cares about. It's not really if it's cynical. It's did he deliberately trip him? Did his foot need to be there? I don't think it did.
Yeah.
So
Mickey Harte here. You're listening to GAA Hour Football Show.
The GAA Hour with Colm Parkinson is brought to you by Paddy Power, home of the Money Back Special.
I'm not finished yet. It took me a long time to get here.
Both players have spoken with each other, and they regret what happened. They've had a frank discussion with each other, and they're both of them are keen to now focus on getting back their county jerseys.
That these fellas will get such a shell shock next Saturday evening that we'll put them back in their asses for 10 years.
I have to start off with an apology to Mayo, who I described as dead men walking on last Thursday's show. Mattie and Conán are here in studio with me, so there's definitely not dead men walking anymore. So what a difference a week can make. Lee Keegan, the miracle man, is back. Seamus O'Shea got onto the field. Vaughan and Cillian O'Connor were flying it. So all of a sudden they've gone from, well, me thinking they're dead men walking. Now, I have to say, I did not expect Galway to throw away tactics that have beaten Mayo 7 times in a row. Let's be honest about it. We're going to talk about that in part 2. James Horan had to play down some comments after the game that he made about Kerry after the league final, that they should have won by 10 to 12 points. So that's going to be pinned up in the Kerry wall now. So he said, I'm sure Kerry don't really care what I say, to be honest. But they do, James, they do. You're not going to get out of it by saying that. I just thought on that day we created a lot of goal chances that we didn't take. So, it was a kind of situation where James Horan's getting his players off the field. I was watching that, actually. Aidan O'Shea was close enough to the dugout and he got the hell off the field, gave his gloves to a supporter before we get Bernard Flynn giving out about him running off the field.
So he was doing his own thing, was he?
No, all the players, but the Mayo fans are crazy. We know they're crazy. So the last thing James Horan obviously wanted from his players, it was to be out celebrating with supporters, getting, claps on the back like they're after winning something when they're not. And it looked like a smart thing from James Horan to do, Maddie. He was just say, come on, get off. This is not a celebration.
No, but he was thinking about Killarney next Saturday night, obviously, straight away. But it just goes to show what kind of supporters Mayo have, that every single match to play, they will invade the pitch after. They're absolutely football mad. As I said, I experienced it firsthand the day of the league final in Croke Park. But they're so into their football, and they will travel in their thousands again. But it was smart thinking, get them off, start getting ready. This will be their 4th, 5th weekend in a row. Every weekend is getting tougher, but as you said, dead men walking, and I think a good few people would have thought that, but they're far from it, and they're the ones going into Killarney next week with all the momentum, and it's no harm to get the lads off and get them tuned into next week again straight away, because it's a short turnaround. Yeah, no, definitely.
We have to mention the Clare goal here, the second one. Obviously we might mention the first one and some power goalkeeping in the second part of the show, but is there a more spectacular goal in GAA where you're running in from the side, you go outside of the boot to far top corner, it comes back off the stanchion, you continue your run and you almost run past the ball as it's coming back out to meet you? It's spectacular.
Yeah, it had everything, just the power of his run, the directness, that finish, but the crowd noise I think was perfect as well the whole way through, because once they turned the first man they sort of got excited, then he beat him, they got more excited, then when he got past the last tackle it was like holy shit, he's in, and I think that's really added to it as well. And you're right, the optics of the ball coming back out, it was that much power on it.
It's almost like then you see some goals and whoever scored it might just drive it back into the goal, or the fella running behind him will drive it into the net. You see it in soccer as well, it's just that has that spectacular nature to it, Maddie. I'm sure you've buried one into the far top corner before.
Probably one at some stage. All it was probably missing was clipping the bottom of the crossbar and then hitting the back stanchion and coming back out. But it had as regards the finish, it had everything else.
Yeah, and there was no goal on when he got it. There was absolutely no goal. And it was Liam Silk. We'll talk about it. Liam Silk, just poor defending, and Brannigan, who terrible defending, just a flimsy effort at stopping him. Now Clare's a big strong man, but at the same time there was definitely really poor defending. Shane Walsh, how did he get that in? We know Michael Meehan years ago got one against Cork. You never score those last minute chances. The goal is lined up, everybody's back there and you have a shot, you're as well off, you've got no chance. Meehan did it, and that was years ago. He did it against Cork, and Shane Walsh, he roofed it. Shane Walsh spotted and beat Clark out in front of the rest of them, and then obviously in through legs. It was a weird one.
Yeah, I think it looked kind of the angle that we were looking at, kind of from the side. It looked like Clark actually dived over, but the ground was obviously still wet at that stage, or it had rained at some stage in it, and when the ball hits the ground, it does really fly off it. And the goalkeeper obviously took the lead, Clark, by going out in front, and once it went under him, the lads couldn't see where it was going along the ground. You're telling the lads the whole time, even one-on-ones with the keeper, put the ball on the ground. It's the hardest place to get down to. Michael Means is an absolute freak. It was complete power that time against Cork in Croke Park. But if Galway had only been 3 points down at the time, it's highly unlikely that goal would have went in.
Yeah.
But the fact there was 6 in it, it didn't really matter as much at the time because they probably weren't going to get a chance to score a second one.
Maybe that's the thing. So the goalkeeper, even in hurling and football, always stands out in front. So maybe you should just say in your head, let's beat him under him, and the others won't see. You know what I mean? Let's go low to close to his feet. He might dive out over it and it'll go under him. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of some potential. But in fairness, Liam Silk, he could have learnt a lesson or two. What was Liam Silk doing scoring that penalty? I spoke with Michael Meehan outside the ground or in the stand after game. He says, what's going on here? He says, he's a specialist. He didn't look like a specialist as he telegraphed it.
Yeah, like he hit one for UCD, I remember, and it was a good penalty. But the way he ran up there, he had to sort of lace it, like the way he came straight at the ball. And then when he tried to hit it with the instep then and go that side, like that was never on because I think his run was too straight, and then it was very obvious for Clark to see where he was going, and he couldn't get enough purchase to get it to the other side of the net. It was a very bad penalty. Very,
very bad penalty. Usually when you telegraph it to one side, you're actually telegraphing it to whip it back the other side and wrong foot the goalie, Matty. But this looked like it wasn't much power on it. If you're going to beat Clark, it has to be a penalty like Diarmuid Connolly in the All-Ireland final, which is a rocket into the bottom left, which is usually the go-to pressure penalty for right-footed kickers.
Yeah, as again, look, it's on the ground, and that one went along the ground of Diarmuid Connolly's, but the one yesterday, I couldn't believe it when I seen Liam Silk standing over, because I was kind of actually wondering during the game, was he playing at all? And then when I showed back James Carr's second goal, he was running after, like he had a poor game all day.
He was on Carr. Confidence
can't have been particularly high going up to take, and I was going, geez, if I was Galway, I'd love to see Shane Walsh standing behind this penalty or someone like that. Ian Burke was still there at that stage, O'Lee, somebody like that. But look, at a specialist penalty taker, maybe you don't see many cornerbacks in the current game coming up to take penalties. And look, realistically, Clark probably could have shuffled across the goal and saved that without having to dive. He wasn't even near full stretch. And a goal at that stage was huge in that game because all the momentum was with Galway. That would have brought it back to 3, and actually straight after that, they were still 6 behind and actually brought it back to 3 with 3 more points. So
they could have been back level then.
Mayo were looking a little bit leggy at that stage and had the goal went in, but I'd say Galway are kicking themselves this morning. But look, at Mayo is by far the better team, but they could have put real pressure on them. But the penalty, it's a really strange one as far as I'm concerned.
He's a big target in the goals, Clark. He's such a big man. It's not an easy penalty on him. But
I think you have to, particularly now the ball has been moved in the 3 metres from the 14 to about 11 yards out. You have to really put pace on it.
Go power, especially with Clark.
I think with any goalkeeper, because unless they get right behind it, they're not saving it. We've seen it on numerous occasions. Power, that's a very short space. If you stand in the goal and have a guy 11 yards out and put real power on the ball, particularly as I said when the ground is wet, put it along the ground really hard. Very hard to get down there very quick.
Yeah, I agree.
Clark is like 90% limbs as well, so you have to absolutely whack it.
Clark doesn't do that thing of guessing like other goalies. He's not going before he's backing his size to get across, and that's why pace is so important with him, because the only thing will beat him, because he's so big, is getting pace on it.
He's got these gadget arms and stuff as well, so he can just get down and react quickly.
Yeah, McQuillan booked the wrong men. I don't think it made much difference. So Cillian O'Connor and Ian Burke got booked when it was meant to be Anton O'Lee and Kevin McLaughlin. I think it was number 13 and 15 or something like that, and he booked the wrong 13 and 15.
I think he booked everyone, to be fair. So I think he kind of got the right kind of.
It was a bloodbath at the end, wasn't it?
Cillian O'Connor, I think, could have been lucky not to maybe get a second yellow. I don't think he was going to have a big bearing on the game, but I think Joe got around fairly well, and I'd say that book, he's reported the end of the game would have took a while. I'd say he mightn't be finished yet. The amount of names was in the book.
Cillian O'Connor is a pup of the highest order. Like, he got Kine that yellow. Now Cillian O'Connor deserved the yellow as well. So they're both pushing each other. They're both holding on. He's holding on to Kine so he can't go for a kick out. Kine's pushing him in the chest. Kine goes a little bit too high and punches him in the chest a bit high, maybe at the neck. Cillian O'Connor goes down holding his face. There was 2 of them in it. Then Kine gets the yellow. Cillian O'Connor gets a free that he sticks over the bar. He is a pup of the highest order. Cynical. We know this anyways. That's the way he plays.
He's always sticking to defenders off the ball and stuff as well. Just runs over with his hands out. And it must be just so annoying for them, and so part of me always wonders, why is he getting involved in it, especially as a forward? There's no other forward I think gets involved as much.
I think he enjoys it. I think he enjoys being in that.
So I was wondering, maybe does that keep him focused? Does that just keep him just sort of taken away?
And we know, we've said this before, Mayo, Eamon Fitzmaurice has been out on record to say Mayo are a very cynical team. And if you look at the teams that Mayo play regularly, like Kerry hate Mayo, Galway hate Mayo, Dublin hate Mayo, Do you know what I mean? It's not like we love Mayo because we want them to win an All Ireland, but it's not like Mayo on the field or some sort of angels going around the place. They're far from it.
No, yesterday was really obvious with about 7-8 minutes to go when they were the 5 or 6 points up. Their tactical fouling kind of around the Galway half back line was really noticeable, and they're actually very, very good at it because they don't pull guys down. They're not giving away yellow cards with big late hits. They're catching them, holding on to them, giving a free, backing off, and they're not cards, and they're not cards in my opinion. And they're very, very good at it. It slows it down. It just gives them a chance to get back into position. And I said they're not picking up cards for it to do it very well. But look at the players like Cillian O'Connor. He's absolutely no angel. But like they're getting plenty of hardship as well. And maybe he's only wanting to give back a bit of what he's getting.
I think all the top teams are at this kind of stuff anyways. They play with that edge to it, and that's the way it is. Kevin Walsh didn't want to talk about his future after the game. They're all like that now. He says, look, I'm not going to get into that. What we want to make sure that this group go out with their heads held high and not listen to crap outside. I think Kevin Walsh listened to too much crap with the way he changed his tactics and played Mayo at a game that Mayo are much better on. But anyways, we'll talk about that in part 2. He said, we're certainly up for it, which was great, and we're certainly up for it in the last minute. Now, they were definitely up for it because off camera, I was at the game and the entire Galway half back line just started hitting their markers just before the ball was thrown in. Like O'Donnell, who you wouldn't think would be into that, just starts lacing Jason Doherty. Daly at centre backs at it with McLaughlin, and the far side as well. They're just punching him into the chest. Like, I mean, it was, and then the crowd see this and they all start roaring. There was a great atmosphere as the ball was being thrown in because it's like Galway are up for it, Mayo are up for it. You know what I mean? Let's see what happens here.
And there was a bit of argy-bargy at the throw-in as well.
There was a real edge to it.
I thought that was hilarious because that went on for about a minute and they were all trying to block off everybody, and then O'Shea just caught it anyway.
yeah. But like, I mean, the one thing I would do if I was a Galway manager is I would be converting an outfield player into goalkeeper. Lavelle's not good enough and Power's not good enough, and that I don't want to be disrespectful to the two players, but they're not, and they're changing them around, and they're neither of them good enough at the kick out part of it, and I'm not sure they're good enough at even the fielding part of it, and they're both not that big and they don't look that mobile, either of them. It might be a thing of getting Fintan or Corrine or one of the seriously, like, I mean, it's worth experimenting with, because obviously that's not there's not any more goalkeepers, because Walsh has been there 5 years and these are the two goalkeepers they're landing on. Like, Power's wearing a hat the other night in the rain. Yeah, no. Something not right about that, lads.
No, look, there's been a very questionable goal conceded by both in the last two games. In the Connacht final, and then obviously Bernard Powers the other day. Very look at that's at inter-county level. That's just not good enough. It gives. You're saying about Galway being really up for it at the start. The war before was true in, but I'm not sure the war after that, because Mayo literally ran through them, and you don't want to hand a team like Mayo go like that. And once they got a 6-7 point lead, even though there's a long time left, it was kind of game over.
Unfortunately,
the way Galway play and the way they have been playing, and as how flat they were in the Connacht final, it was very hard to see them coming back. Now look, they did manage to play themselves back into it, but it was very, very hard to see them getting back and winning the game. And as you said, they've changed completely from the Connacht final, where they carried everything and hand passed everything to, like, they were kicking everything the other day and kicking long and kicking often. And look, it wasn't really working. And you're just looking through the quality of the players that they have, and it's just baffling that they don't be a little bit more attacking. Look, Mayo do it the whole time and sacrifice a little bit at the back. They are going to concede, but Galway kind of caught between both, where they weren't really defending properly and they certainly weren't attacking properly, because I think only two forwards or maybe one forward scored from playing the whole game. So but there's a serious Galway team there, I think, for somebody, whether it's Kevin Walsh or somebody else to look after.
I made a prediction 3 years ago. I was saying that exact same thing, that Galway would win in All-Ireland in the next 3 years. So that's gone, buried.
Yeah, it's year 3 and it just got worse.
That was year 3 and it just got going backwards.
As well, yeah.
And you actually qualified it this year by saying if they get to the All-Ireland final, you're taking it as a success.
So there you go. That's the 3-year prediction that we've been all waiting on, has just completely hasn't come in. Peter Harte black card. Like, I mean, let's talk about this, because this is a weird one, in that Mickey Harte's saying that they're going to appeal it. He says, of course we will, when he was asked. I think anyone in their right mind will know that we will, because I don't think any of the three of them were for what the black card was brought in for, where there's a deliberate intent in any of those things. Now, I would argue to say that there was intent in it, because he'd lost the ball, he was pissed off, and he kicked out at your man as he was tackling, because he was pissed off, right? So that, for me, that's obvious. Is it a black card or is it a yellow card? You see, I think he kind of kicked at him petulantly because he'd lost the ball. It's not a cynical black card, maybe falling on the yellow card, but it was absolutely a trip, lads. It was. He tackled him and kicked him at the same time because he was pissed off. He hadn't collected a ball he should have. His man took the ball kind of off him, And in frustration, he went back to kind of, I don't know, get a little bit of, just lay something on him. What do you think?
I think he's leading with his foot a lot when he's tackling.
Yeah, he did that with Ryan McHugh too, leading with his foot.
They're both the same ones, like the one against Cavan and Donegal. And maybe that's, like, I'd say when you're in a Tyrone team, the analysis you're looking at a lot, boys being highlighted, probably weak tackles, you know, where players are running past people. And maybe that's a symptom of that, where he's just making sure his body's in the way of somebody. And if somebody is going to get past him, they're going to get fouled anyway. So in that regard, it will be a deliberate trip. It comes back to whether you think that should be a black card or not, but I think it is. I do think he'll get his black card or suspension overruled, because the Longford one seemed very harsh. That wasn't a black card, I don't think.
I can't remember that one offhand.
It was a really weird one. It was just, there was a player going down after catching the ball, and he was sort of, his arm was around him. And
right. So he just has to get one off one of the three for it to be for the suspension.
So I think that, like, he gets to appeal all three of them now that he has three.
Yeah.
So
what do you think of it, Mattie? The big excuse is, why would you want to do it? And I understand that theory. Why would you want to do it? But, like, I mean, you can have a rush of blood to the head and do something you didn't mean to do. Like, it's not like a red card anyone means to get the red card. You just do something mistimed and you get the red card. Like, why would you want to get sent off in a big game? Like, that's not really a defence. Why would you do it? He did it.
That isn't a defence, in fairness, but I genuinely do think it's awful kind of tackling technique.
Yeah.
He leads his foot and his knee does go in, so it's not as if there's a guy going by him and he throws his right or left foot out. Like, the Ryan McHugh one is very similar to the one the other day, where and they've showed him numerous times and from a couple of different angles, and he leads with foot and knee, so it's not as if he's going in to trip him when he's going by him, like that. Ryan McHugh was actually running sideways across the field. It wasn't as if he was going by him heading for goal. So I think it's actually it's more bad technique. And I in fairness, I think actually all three of them probably were yellow cards. I genuinely didn't see a black in any of them. And I like Conán, I think he'll get it overruled as well, and I think he'll be playing the next time.
I'd agree. I think they're on more the yellow card line than black cards, but, like, I don't think they're definitely not black cards. You know, it's the black card is a weird one. I do take referees should use their common sense and go, this is not a dangerous situation, it's in the middle of the field. Is it cynical? It's absolutely not cynical. It's stupid, and it was a little bit petulant, and probably I would be on the line of saying it's a harsh black card. But like, he needs to start copping on to this, because, like, if you're leading with the foot, you're in that trip category, and referees are
too close for comfort.
Too close for comfort. Like,
that's all Barry Cassidy cares about. It's not really if it's cynical. It's, did he deliberately trip him? Did his foot need to be there? I don't think it did. So
he needs to stop that. He definitely needs to stop that. Obviously Tyrone won really well in the end, so it wasn't a big deal. Mickey Graham didn't mince his words after the game. Very disappointing. He says, I don't think now is the time for post-mortems. It's time for taking it on the chin, and we'll get up tomorrow morning and move on. There's going to be disappointment for a long time after this, so I don't think that's moving on. While we probably took a few steps forward this year, it feels like we've taken 5 steps back today. We did not see that scoreline coming, but sometimes a reality check of where we're at and where we need to get to. A difficult one. I don't think that's the reality of where Cavan are at necessarily. They didn't score from play until the 28th minute. I think it's like, it just shows how much confidence, momentum, all these intangibles are so important. Like, they had none of either of those two. Tyrone have lots of them. They're physically still in shape after an Ulster final, but just where your head is at is such an important thing in momentum and confidence. Like, it is, like, it can't even be underestimated.
No, the performance to me the other day looked a little bit like what we done with Wexford on numerous years, where, you know, we threw everything into Leinster back in a time when we actually could have won Leinster, and once we were beaten, we kind of threw our hat at it, even though it wasn't said. We knew by the performance the following week. We ended up losing 3-4 years out of 5, I think, the following week or a couple of weeks later in the qualifiers, because we'd left everything in Leinster. That was kind of our championship. We didn't see the bigger picture, maybe getting to a quarter final, which would have been huge for us at the time, and just kind of everything was thrown out after you lost that match in Leinster. And it looked a little bit similar like that with Cavan the other day. But in fairness, Tyrone are experts at closing down the opposition's better players. You know, McVitie, Mackey, McKiernan and Riley. You know, I think a point from play between the 4 of them, and once you take the 4 of those out, you know, you're going a long way to beating Cavan, and Tyrone are experts at closing down players like that, and they never got a sniff. You know, Martin Riley was off at half time, and, you know, game over.
Yeah, they need those players more than anybody else, Cavan. And, like, listen, Tyrone are just too good at this. Look, they always beat Cavan anyways, but they're just too good at this stage of the championship. Last game before Super 8, after 2 or 3 good wins, and Cavan not at that same races. I went Tyrone -4 there. Like, I mean, it was the easiest prediction that you're ever going to go with, like, to be honest. Ronan McCarthy had some comments after Laois were hammered by Cork. Cork had a brilliant performance. Jesus, there's some naive stuff from Laois. You'd have to say, leaving their two lads inside exposed like that, and Hurley and Collins going to the cleaners. But he said, this is where every player wants to be, playing the All-Ireland champions above at Croke Park. What more could you want? If you don't want to be there, you shouldn't be here at all. I like the grand. It's a rallying cry. It's whatever. It's in contrast to what Donegal said last year when they had to go play Dublin away for Dublin getting their home game in Croke Park. Like, it just shows where Cork are at, delighted to be in the Super 8s, where Donegal were at, wanting to get out of the Super 8s. Do you know what I mean? It's a big difference.
Yeah, it's going to be a big difference from playing Limerick, and no disrespect, Laois, to going to Croke Park and playing Dublin as well. So we'll see how he feels after playing them.
And he might change his shoe next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
it's
true though. Like, he's delighted. He's in the Super 8s now. It's almost like this was our target. Immediate worry for these teams that are just delighted to get there, because that's when hammerings get dished out in the Super 8s.
Yeah, well, you know, after the last year and a half, and particularly their league campaign this year, you know, any bit of progress at all, you have to grab it and hold on to it. And look at, as we said, no disrespect to Limerick or Laois, but they've handed out 2 hammerings to them. But no, it is going to be a different kettle of fish the next day in Croke Park. But look at, they've put up 2 really big scores. They've played some really, really good football.
Yeah.
I said it's going to be a different, but they have a little bit of confidence. You know, we're just talking about Tyrone and teams like that. You know, victories and performance like that give you a bit of confidence, and they will have confidence going into Croke Park. And they've always been able to score against Dublin.
Yeah. But
it's what's going to happen the other end is going to be the deciding factor.
I think that's going to be a fantastic game. I'm looking forward to previewing it on Thursday, because Cork have the distribution and the inside forwards that will hurt Dublin, and we know Dublin will offer you 2-on-2s in there if you get the ball in fast enough. So I think that could be a great game. Now, obviously, you would worry for Cork. On the other side, John Sugru said, it's a tough day at the office. We came up against a team we couldn't match today, and it's disappointing. We're out now and that's a year done. Progress made in the league, but no progress made in the championship. They're a good bunch, and they work hard, but there's more work to be done. Progress made in the league, but no progress made in the championship. I was giving out last week about managers trying to dress up years that weren't successful, and Sugru's a very straight talker, and that's it. Progress made. Like, he could say, well, we had a great win against Westmeath in Leinster, and, you know, we followed it up with some great qualifier wins. He's saying we made no progress because we're knocked out at the same stage last year, and that's it. Yeah. You know, he's not trying to. I like that. He's a straight talker, and he's not a bullshitter.
And in fairness though, like that stage is the last 12 of the All-Ireland, and he took over a Division 4 team. So to do that 2 years in a row is still good.
It's as far as Laois can get, if we're being really honest. Yeah. Like, I mean, Laois can't get it. If Laois got into that Super 8s, imagine them being in that Kerry, Mayo, Donegal group, for example. Like, you'd worry if that's what Cork are doing to them. Like, you'd have to say John Sugru's not without blame, leaving Dennis Booth on Hurley for so long looked like madness. It only looked like Trevor Collins was moved on to him towards the very end. Now, we're working off highlights here, so I don't want to be too harsh on him. But like, Garrett Dillon was left on Mark Collins. He got 1-8, 1-4 from play, and Hurley got 2-4 from play. Like, the simple thing and the oldest thing in the book is just at least switch those two and see, is the matchup going to improve? No cover for them. So, like, I mean, when this ship starts sinking, I know it's not your philosophy to play a sweeper, but Jesus Christ, and I know it's not easy to use your centre back as a sweeper because they have to follow Rory Dean or whoever. Geez, you have to take off a forward and bring on a back. Like, you're being destroyed. Like, this was just wide open stuff where Brian Hurley's just getting a diagonal ball, a simple sidestep and a goal. It's too easy now, it was.
By the time his second goal came around, I could not believe the Booth was still on him, because he was being rinsed, like, you know, and like, just didn't seem to have the pace.
But Booth's not able for him. I've marked Booth years ago in club. Booth's not able for a fast lad. Like, Booth's a big, strong fella. Like, and there's a certain team Booth could be good against, you know, and players that he's a good match for. But it's not Brian Hurley. Yeah. You know, like, it's just not. So, like, I mean, it was unfortunate for him, and it's always the case. After having a good year and then get a hammering like that, and then you wonder, was it a good year? You know, like, I'm actually wondering as a supporter, like, I mean, looking back on it, promotion, running the qualifiers, and to go out the same round to Monaghan last year and Cork this year, and I think Cork have improved a lot. I think Laois can hold their heads up high, you know, like, I mean, I don't think they were beating Cork.
How do you think I feel as a Derry supporter who lost to Laois? This is quite sobering for me now as well. To see the Cork are doing that to Laois. Yeah,
no, exactly. Yeah, but that's the king. I do think, and I'm thinking this with the Laois hurlers as well, you'd love for them to go up against Tipperary and put in a really good account for themselves. Like Cavan, all these teams that go out on a low, Roscommon last year, get into Super 8s, and then they got hammered in Super 8s to the point where it's like, we have to change our manager. So it went from being a really good thing to a really bad thing very quickly.
Yeah, no, it takes all the good out of the season, when you end on the back of a bit of a hiding like that. But the likes of Laois, in fairness, as you said, John Sugar's been straight up. They don't really want moral victories, but had they went out with a couple of points lost to Cork, it would have been seen as a reasonably successful season.
You would have said it was a very good season.
Realistically, Laois are not a top 8 team. There's probably only maybe 2-3 teams that aren't into Super 8s potentially could be in it, that would be the top 8.
Yeah.
So I think all the teams in it are either Division 1 last year or next year, I think, with the exception of one. So we probably have got the best 8 teams, are very, very close to it, as left in the championship.
Yeah.
So I don't think they can have too many complaints.
I agree. I think they're probably overachieving, getting into the last 12, which is halfway up Division 2. Do you know what I mean? Which is not where they were batting. So it's definitely not all doom and gloom. Clare and Meath was a classic in a Moore Park, lads. It was a classic first half. Second half was just full of mistakes and giving the ball away. It was a weird one. But Jesus, spectacular scores from Clare was an absolute feature of the first half. My God, Jamie Malone, 4 points from play. We'll talk about him in performance of the weekend. It was unreal. It's mad the way Clare are able to get their go-to men on the ball. When Brennan makes a run, when Gary Brennan makes a run, he's getting that ball. When Jamie Malone comes on a burst, he's getting it. The other players are facilitating these, top level players they have. These are their Division 1s. Tuberty, he's always been looked for. And I think that's fantastic. They make the most of what they have. The other players are working hard to give it to the match winners. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and look, it worked very well from it. They actually nearly caught him in the end. Now look, I think over the balance of the game, Meath were definitely the better team, and they were well ahead, when Mickey Newman went off as well. And then Horan comes through and has a great goal chance that would have killed the game off. But that's what Clare have been over the last 4 or 5 years. They stick in, they've been punching above their weight. I've absolutely nothing against Meath, and delighted to see him back in Division 1 and in the Super 8. So I'd love to see Clare in the Super 8. So it would have kind of put all the work they've done over the last 3 or 4 or 5 seasons. It would have been something well deserved. But absolutely, some of the scores in the first half from Jamie Malone were ridiculous. Outside of the boot, stepping inside guys, and you say they kept getting the important fellas, the guys that they really want on the ball, and when they wanted it, they got it. And look, they made stuff happen. David Tuberty the same. They've a lot of really, really good footballers playing from a small pool, and they've made the very best of it.
It reminded me of Dublin Donegal years ago. Do you remember when Dublin started that game? They were kicking points, Connolly and Flynn from all outside. And I was thinking, Jesus, Clare can't keep up these spectacular points. And Meath were working scores. They were getting scores through working it up the field, whereas Clare were depending on spectaculars. Yeah. So while it was a draw at half time, you're thinking, Jesus Christ, Clare can't keep this level. And they didn't. I think Cathal O'Connor got a spectacular one the second half, and that was it. They kind of went back. And Clare hadn't been working scores as well. Do you know what I mean? So I thought that was kind of how the game panned out.
Yeah, Meath were clipping them over from like 13, 20 yards, because they were just running straight through them.
Yeah.
And Clare were relying on a bit of brilliance, which is exactly like the Dublin Donegal game 2014.
Yeah. So you mentioned Harnan's effort. I got a text message off Billy Sheehan, who's a fisted point aficionado. So I'm running a campaign to ban the fisted point. He thinks Horan should have fisted that over the bar. Now, it was Shane Walsh was inside. I think he took the wrong option in not giving it an air rather than fisting the point. Gary Brennan fisted a point in the first half, and it's one of the few occasions where I would allow a fisted point. There was no goal on there. There was 2 defenders right in front of him, and either kick it over or fist it over. He just has a big club of a hand.
20 yards out.
Yeah. So I'll accept Brennan's fisted point, even though I hate the fisted point. But I don't take Billy Sheen's analysis that Harnan should have fisted it over the bar.
No, not at that angle he was coming at, and probably going to the open side of the keeper was probably the smarter play. And on the ground, if the ball had been on target at the side he went, the keeper was probably still getting there. It was the perfect height for the keeper, maybe waist high off the ground, and the keeper came out in fairness and made himself big. But as we were saying about Shane Walsh's goal, put the ball on the ground. A keeper's going to come leading with the legs, so he's going to be off the ground. There is going to be space. Obviously, in that situation, the right ball was a hand pass across the goal to Shane Walsh to palm it in, the same as Mickey Newman's. It's simple goal and game over.
Yeah, but the technique of doing that though, Matty, that's very difficult. So you do that in training. You'd always try to fool the goalie on his near side. But in a match with a lot of pressure on, stick that on your laces to the far corner if you're going to do it at all. That was a training effort at a goal, really, wasn't it?
Laces and along the ground, because I said it's the hardest place to keep, and particularly close to him. He can't move his feet quick enough to get down to it, because a lot of them will come and lead with the feet, which means they're going to be off the ground. So there's space. There will always be space somewhere, whether it's under him, over him, or to the side of him. And in that situation, there was definitely none to the side of him. There was obviously a good bit to the left, and there was going to be some under him, or as I said, the ball across the goal. And Mickey Newman's was a tap in, a walk in for, and teams hate conceding goals like that because it looks so easy, and had to score that one, it was game over. But himself and Donald Keoghan all day absolutely ran the show, just coming forward at will. They set up a goal apiece. Keoghan scored a point as well, I think. They were excellent all day, and I think Clare, by sitting back and allowing the two of those to have the ball, probably cost them the game.
Yeah, maybe it did. Gary Brennan actually played the whole first half in centre half forward and didn't contest some of the kickouts, which I thought was gas. But one good thing of him holding that centre forward is Harnan man marked him, and he held the 45, that link man. Like, I didn't really think of him as that link man, and he didn't come back to field that much unless he had to chase Harnan. And he was constantly showing left and right and gave Clare some great shape. And weirdly, when he went to midfield in the second half, Clare lost their shape altogether. You know, they didn't have that working it through the lines option. So I don't know why I would be promoting taking Gary Brennan out of midfield, but it was just, you need two Gary Brennans, one in midfield and one as centre half forward.
And he was actually on the ball more in the first half. There's some stats on the website actually. He got more touches in the first half from centre forward than he did in midfield, where normally he dominates so much. But he took so much ball from kick passing, which you wouldn't really sort of associate with him, but he was running out, winning ball and turning as he was
taking his man on.
That's very, very good.
Yeah, no, he definitely was. Right, listen, we'll finish up there, lads. We'll come back and we'll talk about the Mayo-Galway game. Okay, lads, so this was surprising, just talking about Galway's tactics, because, it was definitely a strange one. This was a convincing win from Mayo, let's be honest. Don't let the scoreline fool you. Galway, I know, got it back to 3, and Mayo had gone asleep for a good while, and then Mayo got a couple of points, and then, it was game. I think it was game over once there was 6 in it. In fairness to Galway, they left 3 players up at all times: Farragher, Burke and Walsh on the 40 as the link man. Grand. Wouldn't have much problem with that. They were defending with everyone else. The big difference in their tactics is when they lost the ball, they weren't turning around and going back into their zones and waiting for Mayo. They were trying to turn Mayo over all over the field, right? Leaving no sweeper in front of their full-back line. Silk tried to drop back off Carr. If Carr dropped into midfield, he tried to do a bit of sweeping. But that was it. A lot of the time he wasn't. So their full-back line was completely exposed. This was a completely new Galway tactics. These were Mayo tactics. There was times in the game where Mayo have everybody back bar 1 or 2. You know how those stages of game, depending on if defenders are going up the field. Galway were completely open against Mayo when zonal defending had frustrated Mayo to the point that beaten them 7 times in a row. This was Kevin Walsh bending to pressure of changing. And I've been one trying to put pressure on him to change, but not against Mayo when this really works against Mayo. You know what I mean? Why? In my head, I don't know, Mattie, I think maybe they lost the Connacht final. They made a decision to change. We're changing our style. Maybe it was player-led. Who knows? They might have had a meeting. And that was before they drew Mayo the following Saturday. And they had decided this, you know what I mean? Without saying, right, well, now we've Mayo, will we go back? They probably just said full steam ahead, which it was a mistake.
Yeah, it's a strange one to kind of change in midstream, especially with only 2 weeks, I think, in between the game, to go from kind of nearly all out defence to all out attack.
Yeah, and 1 week from when they drew Mayo.
Yeah, and it'd be strange being in that Galway full back line where normally you have 2-3 guys in front of you, and now all of a sudden you're 2-on-2 or 3-on-3, and that's a totally different ball game. Mayo popping lovely little balls in front of Cillian O'Connor and Darren Conán and all these guys in the turn, and taking shots at will or laying it off to runners coming through, where before the whole middle was blocked up in particular. If they were scoring against Galway in previous matches from out wide, but an awful lot of Galway's or Mayo's scores were in and around that D, under not even under that much pressure, to be honest. And the first point you made about it, and I noticed it very, very obviously after a few minutes, that when Galway lost the ball, there was a lot of guys jogging backwards where before they're already either in position or absolutely flat out trying to get back there. In previous seasons,
a bit confused. Yeah,
they were absolutely caught between both. But it's very hard the way they've been playing over the last 2-3 seasons to try and change that in 2 weeks. I think is virtually impossible. As good of footballers they are and as good of individuals as they have, it's very, very, it's a serious mind change over the space of 2 weeks. With probably only maybe 4 or 5 training sessions, I think it's nearly impossible to do.
It was. And but this is the game Mayo are good at. So you're taking Mayo on at their own game with not much practice at it. It's bizarre what they decided to do. Because this is Mayo's bread and butter, a nice open footballing game. In fairness, after the terrible start from Galway, Kieran was getting roasted by Cillian O'Connor and he fouled him. He was taken off very early, 25 minutes. Then he ran up the field and tried to kick a point after a big long run, and you're like, what are you doing? Then fouled Cillian O'Connor. O'Connor was cleaning him out. I thought when Kine came on, or when Andy O'Kelly came on, he played well. And there was some very good one-on-one defending from Galway after the initial first 50 minutes when they were all over the place.
Yeah, and you don't normally get to see the one-on-one defending, but it was good to sort of appreciate these players. Cavan was an interesting one. I know he was getting cleaned out, but again, I always hate when cornerbacks get taken off when they're getting cleaned out. Could you not just swap him onto another player and see how he goes there? But Kevin Walsh seems to treat yellow cards as a black card almost. So as soon as a player gets a yellow card, they come off, and it was the same as Sean Kelly, I think, at half time got a yellow card, and he didn't appear again for the second half. So,
but do you know what about Kelly? Kelly's not fast. Kelly suited that zonal thing where he was just standing in around. I don't think Kelly's good enough as he was playing wing back, because Killian McDade marked Donny Vaughan, man marked him. So, I wouldn't have had any problem with Kelly coming off, because he came off for Colm, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was Colm.
It's actually easier energy wise though as well. They play the way Galway were playing before. I know there's a lot of running involved, but you go back and you get set up, and teams are so afraid to come at you now that you get a lot of rest when you're in behind that 45. Whereas when they're trying to go a bit more attacking, get more players up the pitch, then they have to track all these Mayo runners who are bombing forward.
Yeah. See, listen, I have to hold my hands up and say I don't mind Galway changing. Galway had to change to move on because they tried the other one. I just have a problem them changing against Mayo. When they tried and tested, like changing against Dublin because it didn't work and you were hammered is one thing. They beat them 7 times in a row. They frustrated Mayo to give them no space. Mayo got clearly frustrated, got men sent off. 7 in a row. Whatever you've decided to do, go back and use what beat them, get into your Super 8s and then play your more attacking football.
Yeah, Tyrone look at a kind of changed tack against Donegal this year as well, and it absolutely didn't work. Now look at it wasn't just, I think the game plan that day was it looked like a bit of attitude. They've gone back to what to do very well, and they've absolutely breezed through the qualifiers, and there'll be a serious opposition for anyone. But Galway, as you say, definitely should have done the same. Stick to what was working. They still have players, still have very, very good players and very, very good forwards. But it's worked against Mayo, and then just to change a week out, or probably a week out because they only know what the opposition is then is kind of a bit bizarre.
That's the thing. And ironically, their forwards didn't even perform well in this more attacking play. Because they were all over the place. Yeah. And they couldn't. Durkin did a brilliant job on Shane Walsh. Yeah. He was all over him, and Shane Walsh got to hold the 40 because Durkin didn't go forward at all. He just did an old-fashioned man-marking job on Shane Walsh. They couldn't get good ball high up the field. Their kickouts were poor. When they went to midfield, they weren't winning them, so they couldn't get any quality possession around midfield to be able to give good ball inside. The ball inside was shitty, and it was coming straight back out, and Farragher wasn't winning, and Burke was getting them out near the corner, and Mayo were tigerish. And it was a bit all over the place in that first half from Galway.
Part of me was wondering, does Shane Walsh actually suit the way they were playing, like going deeper, getting ball and coming through the middle with it, rather than being on the 40? I know we always say about half forwards needing to hold the line, but he did one run in the second half, and I was like, oh Jesus, yeah, Shane Walsh is here. When he wasn't influential at all, especially in the first half. Maybe he needs to go deeper and get the ball. Yeah,
because Colin Boyle was back covering him as well, so he kind of had to contend with 2 men. See, this is another thing, if you Shane Walsh, who's in a very important role, you have to realise Colin Boyle will be dropping in front of him. Where's Colin Boyle's man? Don't drop so deep that Colin Boyle's just easily able to drop off you. You have to engage him. You have to plan for all eventualities here.
It takes him away from Shane Walsh. And look at it's like we were saying with Clare get their most important influential guys on the ball. This is what Galway needs to do with the likes of Shane Walsh. So if whoever Boyle is supposed to be marking, keep him further up the field, that he actually occupies Boyle's mind, and he can actually see him somewhere that he has to pick him up. You take a bit of room away from or give Walsh a bit extra room, and I think it starts to make things happen. A lot of the ball has been kicked into the full forward line was from a long way out, which meant it gives the defender that extra second or two. 30-40 yard passes are much harder to intercept than the 50-60 yard ones that they were kicking in. Now, while they were decent ball, they were kicking into a load of space, but the guy was completely isolated. Burke was winning ball out on the sideline completely on his own, because the rest of his support was far too far away from him.
That's the thing. So the change to that is maybe go 2-2 and not just have Walsh on his own. Make sure Brannigan or Heaney or someone, even though they like to go back, they're 2 players who have regressed badly in the last couple of years, both Heaney and Brannigan. They were 2 of their very important players, and they've gone back to not performing well at all. But that's the answer to that. So Shane Walsh was being man-marked by Durkin tightly, and Boyle maybe covering, say Walsh didn't have both sides to run because Boyle was one, so then he was kind of snookered, so then they had to avoid him and go long from way too far back, and that was Galway's game plan there. Straight away kind of messed up. They weren't getting possession off kickouts far enough out the field to be able to give in good ball. They were working off scraps under kickouts. Like Johnny Heaney Johnny Heaney seems to be a target for one of their kickouts. He's standing on the 45 on the sideline, and Jason Doherty's on him, and he's just standing a few yards infield. A smart thing to do, watching him. We've talked about this on the show before. So if that's going to get to Johnny Heaney, Jason Doherty's going to get to him before the flight of the ball comes to him. So it's just like,
and he's isolated on the sideline.
And he's isolated, and it was actually the kick out to him that led to the goal. It went over Heaney's head over the sideline, and straight from that then it was a miss-hit shot from Conán, and Power made a mess of it, and it was a goal.
Yeah, I actually thought like Mayo sort of were tempting Galway into playing that short. I think they wanted them to play the short ball.
Yeah,
they
I think they did.
The
but they zoned it. We've said this before. Zonal is the way to go.
Exactly.
Now, man mark the full forward line because you don't want them to tap to them. But anywhere back from that, there's enough flight on the ball that the zonal lads will be able to land at that point.
Yeah. And then when Galway went short, it gave Mayo enough time to set up or foul like they did around that middle third. They were able to foul them, slow the game down. And I think there was only 2 scoring frees that Galway got the whole thing because Mayo were smart about it. But like in the other side of it, it was so strange where Galway were just going man for man. And there was one time I think Peter Cook had supported the play down the right hand side. Galway ended up kicking it wide. I think it was Farrar who kicked it wide. And then you saw Peter Cook coming running across the camera the whole way over to the other wing trying to get to Aidan O'Shea, who David Clark has just popped the ball out to 40 yards from goal, and it was left for Peter Cook to go from wing to wing.
So they weren't communicating. Yeah, that's terrible.
There should have been somebody closer to that to just move across the line or something like that. But
that's fairly basic communication, isn't it?
So it's like going through the lines. There's no point in the half forward running to the half back line. You get the midfielder to drop back a line and you go back a line and everyone is back in position. But I think Power was kind of, in fairness, sold down the river a little bit. I think I seen a stat last night, he had more possession than any Galway outfield player, where he took a short kick out and took it back, and the number of times where maybe a full back, as Sean Andy O'Callaghan done a few times, fist passed the ball back to Power and actually ran off rather than being an option for to take it again. And here he's soloing the ball around the D, not knowing what to do with it. And it's no wonder that he had more possession than any of the Galway outfield players, and Mayo were absolutely like they had squeezed up on him. They weren't giving him a target, and he said he's not the best kicker out of hand, and they were just putting pressure on themselves.
Yeah, the rule that's going to prevent going back to the goalkeeper is a good one though. It avoids that. They're just catching it and going straight back and then continuing to play, and then the goalie's running out, tapping on his toe, he's no options, everyone's paired off, and it just doesn't look good for the game, does it?
So what's your is your proposal the keeper's not allowed to be passed the ball at all,
from a kick out? I think from a kick out,
pass straight back to him.
I think from a kick out would rule it. From play it's difficult because
there's a good rule in 5-a-side football where the keeper gives it to you, you're not allowed to give it back to him at any level, so you can't just keep doing that little passing it back to the keeper.
Right, but you can give it to the goalkeeper if he makes this mad run out at the end.
Yeah, so then he has to be braver.
That's the thing you don't want it to prevent, really, because there's a bit of kind of drama about the goalie landing up and maybe getting a pass. You don't want to prevent that, but I do. Maybe if the goalie gives it to you in any, you can't give it back.
But somebody else can. But then it means he has to be bolder if he wants to get the ball. So somebody else will have to.
We'll have to do another show about this. This is up for debate for the next Congress. I mentioned Boyle sweeping. Colm came on at half time and he was trying a bit too hard. He took on his man when he got at the very first ball, and it's almost like when you're coming back from injury. I remember my debut, someone said to me, and it's the most simple advice ever: play your way into the game, don't give away the first one or two, hand pass them off. And I did exactly that, and about 15 minutes into the game I was thinking, geez, I've been on the ball 3 times and these things going through your head, I haven't given it away, I feel good. Then I took off and scored a point. Now I'm playing really well, you know what I mean? You build yourself into it, and I think Comer could have done with that little bit of advice. Lay the first 1 or 2 off. Don't be expected to win this game on your own for us.
And not straight after half time. In fairness, he had the punch and it came back off the post. If it had went over the bar, it could have been completely different, because now he's in the game straight away. He's made a huge contribution, but it hit the post, he went out, he fouled the guy, then the next time it happened again, then he gets turned over by Chris Barrett, I think it was, and it's all of a sudden you're under serious pressure. And what you're saying is right, coming back from injury or playing your first game, whatever, just work yourself into it and do the couple of simple things. And I said all of a sudden you're in the game, everything is going grand here. I've had 4 or 5 possessions, I haven't done anything wrong, and confidence starts to flow, where the other way it'll drain away very quick when you start giving away. And he was actually over chasing, and there's an awful lot of guys doing it now where they're over chasing tackles, they're going flying at a guy, he's just sidestepping him. and like Owen Curran, I think, went out after Cillian O'Connor on the end line and just pushed him in the back. He was heading away from goal.
That was one of the worst fouls I've ever seen.
But it seems to be happening more and more. There's a couple of instances in the Cavan Tyrone game as well where they're just running up behind the guy and just pushing him in the back, and just getting that. Geez, the manager must be tearing his hair out of this. Like, especially Cillian O'Connor heading towards the sideline on the end line. You give him a tap over free. Now they're another point further ahead of us, but. Look, I don't know. It's a killer for a manager.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think Mayo played the better football in the game. I think Galway's comeback kind of, it was more, I don't know, chasing the game rather than like the good points came from Mayo. I think Cillian O'Connor's first point was moved up by the foot through the lines really well. There was a second half point by Jason Doherty, which was a lovely Cillian O'Connor layoff from an Aidan O'Shea pass to Jason Doherty. The good scores in the game pretty much from place came from Mayo.
They use the line so well, don't they? There's always somebody ahead. There's another platform, and the James Cargo. I know it was so individual, but that was just a kick out from Durkin, from Cork to Durkin, and then Durkin up to Carr, and he took it from there. So
I'd say they couldn't believe the kick pass was on.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
but you couldn't see, while it was an outstanding finish, you couldn't see that kind of a goal being scored against the likes of Tyrone or Dublin, because Liam Silka's following him, literally doesn't put a hand on him, and I think it was Brannigan ran by him and never laid a glove on him.
Oh yeah, he just put his hand out.
It's a fantastic run, a really powerful run, but you don't get goals like that against the likes of a Tyrone or a Dublin or defence like that, and you certainly won't get it against Donegal. So while it's an outstanding goal, I think there are not going to be too many of them scored in the Super 8s in Croke Park against a Dublin or a Tyrone.
I think that's James Carr's forte, his big slalom runs, because he's a big powerful guy, isn't he? It looks like that's his game, even though we don't know him too well. I know he scored a spectacular point in the league final late in the second half, but it seems to be his game is a running game. Like, you'd be surprised that Silk. Like, Silk's a top level cornerback. Like, I mean,
well, I suppose it just goes to show that Galway, after changing for so long, as I said, the likes of him and Karen and Sean Andy O'Callig or Kine, whoever's in there, have 2 and 3 extra guys in front of them. Now all of a sudden, when they don't, they're getting guys coming running at them one-on-one, and where, I don't know, possibly the art of one-on-one defending has been kind of let go a little bit because you're defending in numbers. Now all of a sudden, when he has to defend one-on-one, particularly again a big imposing guy like that, he had his hands full, and he's maybe not sure what to do.
Yeah, I think they did, like, in fairness to the Galway defenders, for looking for the future, I thought Kine did well on Cillian O'Connor. Like, I mean, I thought Sean Andy did well when he came on too. Like I always say this, when you're going man for man at the back, yes, it's very risky, and Mayo do that. It's very risky, and yes, if good ball comes in, you'll be taken for a point. But there's the trade-off of what you might get at the other end. That's always the way. So, like, I mean, I would stick with it if I was Galway. Definitely would. I think Mayo's response, Galway got it back to 3, and for a second you thought maybe there might be something in it. But then Cohen scored a huge score, and then a huge free from Cillian O'Connor, who he absolutely bought off Kine. Sold Kine completely up the river. And then that was it. That was game over then. So, like, while Mayo were very tentative at the start of the second half, when they needed to, then they were able to turn the screw. Look, it was a convincing enough win from Mayo, realistically.
Galway were always going to get their spell in the second half when they were on top, and they had it in the first half too. They scored 4 out of 5 points. I think Cook kicked a couple of wonderful points, but they weren't scores that were particularly well worked. They were just really, really good finishes. But said Galway were going to get their spell. I think missing the penalty, I think, was probably the big turning point in the game. I know that the 45 was kicked over and they got it back to 3, but the difference in being 3 behind at that stage or being 6 behind was huge. And I think the penalty miss was the big turning point in the game, but there's no doubt about the Mayo were the better team.
Yeah, so Kevin Walsh will go, do you think, lads?
Malachy O'Rourke's available. I think, and Jim McGuinness, I think this sort of changes the thought process of a lot of county boards who are ambitious. Do they look at these 2 boys first before they make any decisions?
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah. What do you think, Matty? Is McGuinness in the market? McGuinness would be a great appointment, all right.
Yeah.
Is he in the market, I wonder? Is he back in Ireland? We don't know what his story is. He's not back on Sky anyways.
Get him into the market.
I'd say for the right offer, anyone could be on the market. Look at
your man from Supermax will have to open up the wallet.
Pat's going to have to come big. Yeah, look, it's up to, absolutely. I think Kevin Walsh deserves to make his own decision. I think he's done great work with Galway over the last 5 years. He took him up when they were in a bad situation and has won Connacht titles with him. So I think he's well entitled to make his own situation. And I don't see Galway getting rid of him. But look at the likes of Malachy O'Rourke and the likes of McGuinness are really interesting. Whether they can go into the likes of Galway and and do a big job in there. You know, not all outside managers come in and are a huge success. But you know, the likes of these guys have really good pedigree. But you know, they might not necessarily be the right fit for Galway football.
Well, that's the thing. You see, you don't know. They're big names, and that's the good point. If Galway are trying to move away from a defensive style, is McGuinness and Malachy the managers that you want?
What about former Corofin boss Stephen Rochford?
I would think that might be a better fit potentially for Galway.
You might fancy it as well.
Might fancy it, yeah. Depends how they go. That's a good one. Rochford or someone like that, I think, maybe.
I think it's most likely probably, you know, they had Joe Kernan, it didn't really work out. And, you know, I think there's probably is enough really good coaches in Galway. No, even, you know, it's a bit left field, but even the likes of Pádraig Joyce, who's with the Galway under 20s at the moment, or maybe the likes of him and Rochford together. But, you know, I'd say Rochford is probably going to be in Donegal for a season or two. So, you know, if Kevin Walsh does go, there will be an opening there. As I said, the outside guy is maybe not always necessarily the right option either. Yeah,
I think what the next manager needs to do, number one, he needs to find a goalkeeper. I know that I just threw Fionn O'Curry out off the top of my head. You're laughing at me, Conán, but there might be someone there that could do that job. You also need to tap into Galway's natural flair, their historical flair. They're known as a great footballing county, and people started using that as a stick to beat them with. You know what I mean? That's not a stick to beat you with. That's a huge quality, that you're a traditional, brilliant county for brilliant scoring forwards, and that's probably part of the reason I wanted them to move away from that defensive system. And I think the other night, in a way, some of these lads, if you get them marking from the front, prove that if you leave them in one-on-ones, yes, a Cox can clean Sean Andy for 3 points, but sure, that's not the point. If you said to Sean Andy going out marking Cox, if you keep him to 3, I'll be happy with you. Don't have him castigated. They dropped him for that. You know, now I know Cox got the better of him, but Cox is a top level player this year, and 3 from play isn't humiliating. But this is the point, that it's not the end of the world to be conceding 1-1 off your marker or 1-2. What can Shane Walsh, Colm or Burke do at the other end, and can we beat them? I do think that the next Galway manager needs to get the balance of that right. Fair?
Definitely. And as I said, that's why I think potentially it probably could be a Galway person, because they know the scene inside out. And look, there will be an immediate bounce with a new manager as well. You see it everywhere. You see it in Cavan this year, and look, you can keep going through any number of counties, and you know, was it to be? And that's why I'm thinking the likes of a Pádraig Joyce, who knows it inside out and who is that kind of a player himself, who likes playing attacking football. Look, you can't be naive and say, right, we're going to all out attack, there's going to be no defending. That does not work in the modern game either. But guys like that are smart enough to know, look, I have really quality football here at my disposal. You know, I can't believe the likes of Kieran Malloy is not on the team somewhere, you know, half forward, because half back and half forward is more or less the same position these days anyway. But I think the likes of a Pádraig Joyce or someone could really get the best out of players like that. They've too many good footballers kind of to be tied up in a defensive game, and you know, let these guys go and express themselves. That's the Galway teams we were looking at through the 90s and the 2000s, you know, free scoring, you know, going up head to head with Kerry in Dublin and putting big scores on the board, and said they've too many good footballers not to be doing that again, and there's lots of them on that team at the moment.
I agree. I couldn't agree. I think, for the record, I think Walsh will go. I think he's probably taken him as far as he can. Right, we'll leave it there, lads. We'll come back with Paddy Power performance of the weekend. First nomination for Paddy Power performance of the weekend is Peter Cook. 4 points from play in the first half alone, lads. Was some shooting by him. Now, we know he likes to take a point. He was on Aidan O'Shea and, you know, completely got the better of Aidan O'Shea. Aidan O'Shea didn't influence the game the other night that like the way he usually does. It's not like everyone went through him. So you'd have to give Peter Cook a huge amount of credit for that.
Yeah, she did a lot of dog work, you know, like he always does at his baseline, I suppose. But Cook was just so powerful going forward and so important, where everybody else was not hiding, but they weren't getting on the ball.
He took the game to Mayo single-handedly, pretty much.
They weren't making things happen, and for long periods, too often, Galway were going without scores, and it was always Cook that ended up changing things. And it was just because he was bursting through 2 tackles and swinging over these great scores. 4 really, really top quality scores, like so. A big game.
Yeah, definitely. Cillian O'Connor, I thought, was outstanding until Kearns went off, and then he quietened a little bit when Kine went on to him. James Carr obviously got the 2 goals. Darren Cohen again, scored 3 points. Like, where has this lad been? He seems to be a regular feature in Paddy Power performance weekend. Unbelievably accurate. And when you're unbelievably accurate, you have an incredible chance of playing well, because especially in a modern game when you're coming on loops and, you know, you can just pop up in space, and if you can kick long range scores. And it's very funny, it was a mishit score from him, which is very unlike him, that led to the James Carr goal. And I don't know what the psychology of it is. Maybe Darren Cohn is so accurate that everybody switches off for the mishit point. Because I remember being in there a couple of times myself, and you'd see somebody takes a shot, she'd practically go asleep, and it could come back off the post or anything, and you're just not used to it, Matty. But like, I mean, you'd probably notice defenders doing the exact same thing. So when a mishit point comes, suddenly you could be catching it, and your defender might be actually still looking over the bar for the point.
Yeah, definitely. You'll see it very clearly, particularly in inter-county matches. Defenders chasing the guy, and once he shapes to shoot, you can see him visibly slowing down, because, you know, it's game over here. This ball has gone over, something like that. But look, you'd be saying to young fellas the whole time, just follow the ball in, just wait till it's dead. Defenders and attackers, wait till the ball is dead, because, you know, it only takes, and, you know, and we've seen in big games on numerous occasions, one ball come back off a crossbar or a post or a spill like the other day or something like that, and, you know, a goal that set the tone for the whole match, and it really rocked Galway back on their heels. Yeah, it definitely did. Jamie Malone, lads, 4 points. Another man, 4 points from playing the first half. Went out of it a bit in the second half. And Seamus Lavin, cornerback for Meath, was man marking him for the whole game. So I was surprised he came out in the second half man marking him again, because he was destroyed in the first half. Jamie Malone does a really weird thing. He holds the ball like a rugby player in one hand. So he holds his man off with one hand, and he's holding the ball out here. It's not even under his arm. He's kind of holding it, kind of, you know, the way the rugby lads can do it. Hand and wrist, yeah. So defenders can't get at it. Very hard to get at it. So he gets his 4 or 5 steps, shrugs them off. He's gone into it. He's a much bigger man. He was a slight fella 2 or 3 years ago. He's a big hulk of a man now. Yeah, there's not many small guys playing inter-county football or hurling anyway. But no, he's really filled out. Look at some of his finishes in the first half. Were great, unbelievable quality. You know, outside of the boot, instep, the one that came off the inside of the post. You know, and all from distance as well. There was no tap overs in the forward end. But look, he definitely went out of it in the second half, and it was a factor in possibly Clare not winning the game. But, you know, he absolutely deserves his nomination for performance of the weekend. He was outstanding. Brian Hurley, 2-4. Got loads of space. Great to see him back. We know about his injuries at this stage. He's been on this show. His first goal though, lads, soccer style, beautiful. Confidence is up high when you're scoring a goal like that. Yeah, that was brilliant. Like, just great improvisation as well. Just like, I can just do that. You didn't have to break stride, because breaking stride there might have meant going down. Your momentum would make you fall, and then there's no goal chance. I think that sets like the top players apart from, you know, like if the average Joes, because where you're just told bend your back, get it up, and then like put your foot through it. Where he's just like, I could just put this in the net this way, and he's just a real quality player that it paid off. It was Mark Collins to set him up as well. We always talked about Ian Burke's hands, but his were class that day against Leeds. It was a hand pass. Yeah, it was a hand pass across. But like, I mean, if you miss a score like that, lads, you're in big trouble. It's like trying to shoot from the sideline, or, you know, managers have pet hate. If you don't score that, you could be taken off. It and probably looked silly as well, but it was a fantastic finish, because the ball landed at his feet and it was really awkward. He had to come across it with his left foot. Like a right-footed guy would probably try and stand or turn his right foot and side-foot it in or something like that, but he never broke stride, as you said. And I said it was an awkward height for him. If it had bounced up, he probably could have caught it and went around Graham Brody, but it didn't. He had to finish the way it was, and it was a super finish. And look, it's great to see him back. He's had a horrendous time of injuries, and, you know, he's an absolute handful for anyone to have to mark now. He's a handful, and I'm really looking forward. Mark Collins scored 1-8. He deserves a nomination as well. It was 1-4 from play. I'm really looking forward to those two against Dublin, because like we said, if Rory Dean and the half forwards can engage the Dublin half back line, Dublin will give you that. They'll give you that until the cavalry comes back and helps. So it'll be, I think they can get some joy, definitely from the highlights and from some of the ball they were given in. It's the exact type of ball that causes Dublin problems. And, you know, Hurley in those one-on-one situations are very, very good. So it will be interesting. Donald Keoghan, you've mentioned him, Matty, already. He was outstanding. Set up the goal. It actually wasn't going to be a goal until Menton followed it in. I thought, watching it, that it was a goal. Scored a very good point. Trevor Giles said recently that he would get on any Meath team of any era, and it's hard to disagree with him. Like, I mean, he's a top quality player. He's a real Meath footballer. You know, he won a huge ball in the square near the end and came out with it down along the sideline as well. You know, big, strong, physical, aggressive. You know, really comfortable on the ball. Kicked a great point. You know, I'd say he would be on most inter-county teams at the moment as well. Never mind any Meath team of any era. And he's a real driving force and has been all year, even from the time they played Carlow. He was getting up and down the field all day that day as well.
Great engine, all right. Yeah,
huge levels of fitness, but a fantastic player, and again, absolutely deserving of his nomination. He was excellent again yesterday.
He's constantly ghosting forward too. Like the amount of hand passes that will just be thrown over, and suddenly he's. I know that happened for the goal, but that's a feature of his play, that he's just coming on. However, he can just kind of be in a crowd of people, and then just make a run and be spotted.
Against Laois, I assumed he was playing the forward line, and then you just saw him taking off back to the half-back line again after every attack that he was finishing or setting up the last score. Quality, just a real engine on him as well, and like that was real skill and composure for the goal that he ended up setting up. Anybody else would just blast that ball.
It was great composure, sidestep. That was rugby-esque sidestep there, wasn't it? To go in and come back off your left that easily, because he's right-footed. Cian O'Dea, I thought, played very well for Clare. Kind of played that kind of old-fashioned roving corner forward role, and got on a load of ball, kicked a brilliant point, and got in lads' faces. And I hadn't seen him before, because unless he'd grown his hair or something like that, and I didn't recognise him, but he thought he was very good, industrious and just all over the field. So and Cathal O'Connor, obviously in midfield, was very good for Clare as well, kicked some great scores. Darren McCurry is the last nomination, lads. Scored 3 from play in the first half. He's a bit of a streak player, lads. When he's on song, he's top quality. And I thought it was interesting that he came off after 45 minutes, and that's Mickey Harte saying, this lad's on it and I'm going to look after him. Am I right?
Probably. He scored the 3 points in about 6-7 minutes and finished the game.
Kind of a streaky player, isn't he?
End of the first half, which was kind of strange. He was coming onto the ball from deep, where normally he plays a lot further inside beside McShane or something like that, but he was actually coming onto the ball, and it was the one that was breaking the line, just popping the ball over the bar. And I think he did come on the loop for one of them, but he had 3 points in 5-6 minutes, effectively finished the game. And you're probably right, Mickey is trying to look after him, and I'd say he's guaranteed his number 15 jersey or his number 13 jersey for next weekend.
Yeah, he definitely is. So Tyrone have Roscommon first, so that'll be interesting. So both groups are decent, aren't they? I suppose one group is stronger than the other, but Meath, you'd worry for Meath. You'd worry for Roscommon and Cork against Tyrone and Dublin, wouldn't you?
But I really like that group. I think
I don't like that group too much myself. No, unless Cork can put in a good performance on Saturday. Anyways, look, we'll talk about this on Thursday. Whose performance of the weekend going to? I'm asking myself. Donald Keown, have you got a nomination here?
Patrick Durkin, a bit disappointed not to see him.
Patrick Durkin,
good man-marking display, but some amazing passes as well throughout the game.
Yeah, Paddy Durkin. Yeah, okay, I'll allow him, but he's not going to beat Donald Keogan, even though he was marking a much higher level player than Donald Keogan was. Donald Keogan is Paddy Power performance of the weekend. I think Meath deserve it after. It's a weird one with Meath that they've reached every target they set at the start of the year, but there's still a bit of a cloud hanging over them after getting destroyed and embarrassed a little bit by Dublin. Unfortunately, that's the reality for them, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, it could be the next couple of weeks could be tough as well, and that's probably going to tell more of a story. But look, if you'd have told them at the start of the year, get to the Leinster final, get promoted into Super 8s, I think that it took the hand off.
Fairy tale stuff, yeah. And how can there be any doubt over this, or cloud over this, the Dublin cloud that hangs over everyone? I think they'll do well in their home game. If they can do well in their home game in Park Talton, they've put it up to Tyrone there. They can potentially not be embarrassed, that kind of way, because you would worry for them in Croke Park and in the away game based on the evidence, definitely, of the second half. Right, lads, we'll leave it there. So congratulations to Donald. We'll send you the Paddy Power Lucky Pants whenever I get around to it. Right, that's it. We'll be back on Thursday. We'll be previewing the Super 8. It's all heating up now, lads. This is the big time. All the shadow boxing is over. We'll be back on Thursday and we'll preview, probably paying most attention to the big one in Killarney. All right, we'll talk to you then. Good luck.